This week on Illegal Aliens, do shadowy aliens prefer chocolate ice cream or strawberry? Can Isabel Evans give up stability and security to become a jet-set supermodel? And is there a mechanic in Roswell who can fix a radiator hose so it stays fixed? We're looking at Monsters, Episode 3 of Season 1 of Roswell. I'm Chris.
And I'm Claire, and this is Illegal Aliens, a Roswell podcast.
Monsters first aired on October the 20th, 1999.
It was directed by David Semel and written by Thanaia St. John.
Thanaia worked on the Superman show Lois and Clark before Roswell and has a story by co-credit on the Buffy episode Gingerbread with Jane Espenson, who wrote the script for that episode. Since Roswell, she's worked on Eureka and Grimm.
And David Semel is a journeyman director who's worked on Beverly Hills, 90210, Buffy, Dawson's Creek, American Dreams, No Ordinary Family, The Man in the High Castle, and the new Star Trek series. Let's start the recap.
As an editorial choice, I propose to cover the Maria Valenti-Isabel plotline in greater detail for this week's recap, just because there's so much good stuff there.
Sounds good.
Maria sees Max and Isabel's Jeep being towed and offers Isabel a ride. Isabel uses her powers to boost the air conditioning in the stereo speakers in Maria's car, which freaks Maria out. The girls bond a little over embarrassing mothers, but Maria gets distracted and rear-ends Sheriff Valenti's car.
At school, Maria complains to Liz about Isabel trying to mess with her head. Liz asks Max to talk to Isabel, and he does, but Isabel argues that making Maria afraid would work to their benefit. Max suggests instead that she try to find common ground, and suggests starting with fries.
Maria panics when she sees Isabel sitting in her section at the crash down. Liz pushes her to go and be friendly, but Maria is stilted and awkward as she takes Isabel's order. Valenti comes in for a Coke. Maria blurts out, "To go?" at once, then asks, "Is there anything else I can tell you today?" before correcting herself. Valenti asks Maria for her insurance information, tells her that he's there to protect her. Liz rushes over to lend Maria moral support, and Valenti leaves.
After talking with Max about looking for answers and whether they can trust Liz and Maria, Isabel uses her powers to enter Maria's dream. Maria is dreaming of Max, Isabel, and Michael in alien makeup, and Liz saying she doesn't see anything wrong. Dream-walking Isabel questions Maria as alien tentacles wrap around her, and Maria struggles to tell Sheriff Valenti about the aliens. Maria wakes up and falls off her bed.
In the crash down, Isabel quotes a line from Maria's dream just to startle her. Valenti comes in, asking for breakfast, and tells Maria that he trusts her about the menu. He tells her that the insurance company took care of them both, and asks to talk to her in his office about the accident the night of the crash festival.
In the biolab, Max knocks some books onto the floor to have a private conversation with Liz under the table. He asks if Maria will be okay talking to Valenti, and Liz tries to convince him everything's under control, but Max can see that she's flustered and unsure.
Liz tries to coach Maria in a very specific script for her interview with Valenti, but Maria loses her temper, says that maybe they need Valenti to protect them, and tells Liz not to control how she feels.
In Valenti's office, Valenti lectures Maria about control with fear and asks questions. Maria starts with non sequiturs from Liz's script, and then tries to tell him as little as possible. Valenti tells Maria about how his father lost his job over hunting aliens and tore their family apart. He asks Maria what the strange things are she's seen recently, and Maria tells him that Isabel comes from a nice family, the kind that it's his job to protect.
Driving away, Maria gives Isabel a ride because the Jeep has overheated again, and tells her that she realized being scared all the time is what it's like for Isabel. Maria and Isabel meet the other three at school, and the five of them share a silent moment before leaving. Michael on his own, Liz and Maria together, Max and Isabel together.
Topolsky starts doing involved career aptitude interviews for many students, including Liz, Max, Isabel, Alex, Maria, and Kyle. While she asks Max which of the little kids in the picture he relates to, and he answers behind a tree, Topolsky reacts with surprise and tells him how she felt behind the tree in college, until she ventured out to start a conversation with the guy she liked. She also speaks with Liz about the appeal of science and tells Isabel that her stated career goal of becoming a supermodel doesn't match her personality profile. Later, with Max again, Topolsky prompts him to remember his dreams from when he was a little kid, then guesses out loud that he doesn't have any memories from before his adoption.
And also, Max goes into the UFO center to deliver some money that Maria accidentally shortchanged a customer while on shift alone. There, he asks the owner, Milton Ross, about alien sightings in 1959. Milton asks him to come back the next day, and he does. Milton asks him why he asked about 1959, but Max says that he came to see if Milton knew anything. He's shown a photo of a kid at an ice cream parlor with a vaguely alien-shaped shadow on the wall next to him. Max fibs that, he'd heard about this sighting at the ice cream parlor, which disappoints Milton, but he still offers Max a job and includes access to his alien files as a bonus perk. Milton makes an ironic speech about eventually meeting an alien face-to-face and saying, "I told you so." So, let's start the discussion. And I wanted to start with this idea of controlling through fear.
Yes, it's an interesting one, that.
Yes. We start it with Isabel saying that it could work to their benefit if Maria was scared of them and thought of them like evil aliens because she wouldn't do anything to cross them then.
Oh, is that what she's thinking? Because I wondered about that as I was watching. I thought surely a clear-headed, a level-headed Maria is more manageable than panicky Maria.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that could really fit what Isabel was saying, but it does seem a very dubious strategy.
It's definitely up there with peanut clusters.
Personally, I thought the peanut clusters weren't that bad, so yeah.
Fair enough. Actually, as strategies go, that one was definitely
Yeah.
one of the better cover stories we've seen to date.
Yes. But we get the callback to controlling through fear in the interview with Valenti, and I thought that it really is something that could just as easily be said of Valenti himself, that he's trying to make Maria afraid of Isabel so that Maria will tell him what he wants to know.
Yes. Well, and even Valenti himself, we really play up his menace for some reason, all through this episode, at least. I got that impression.
Yeah, he's...
Right down to the musical cues. He seems to loom and to hover and to turn up unsuspectingly.
Yes, and he's very good at kind of pushing these unstated messages in each of his conversations with Maria. The "I trust you," institutions are there to protect us, that kind of thing.
Yes, he's having about 3 conversations at once with Maria at any given
Yes.
moment. And implicit in all of them is, I know about aliens.
Yes. And I really like the fact that Maria rebuffs him again with this invocation of family, in this case on Isabel's behalf, saying that, Isabel is not somebody who you need to protect families from. Isabel is part of a family that needs protection.
Yes, and it sort of resolves a bit with an earlier beat we've had as she's heading into the crashdown and she says, nerving herself for the encounter, "Oh, we're just all one big happy family," without any conviction.
Right.
I find
Right.
that.
Yes, well, the true family will come later on in the show. I think we do
Yes,
get
I think so. I think we're
found family, but it's episode 3, so it's still a work in progress.
still laying the groundwork, yeah. I found it interesting too, though, her assertion that Isabel comes from a good family, because there's something about the teary, anxious Maria that almost suggests that she doesn't feel that way about her own life, her own home life, even though we obviously are just beginning to get the traces of that.
Right.
It comes on the heels of this revelation her father's not there.
Though we haven't seen her mother yet, we've got this
No.
notion of her mother selling the kooky alien souvenirs, which is...
Oh, that's a lovely beat. I do like the universality of trying mothers in this
yes,
episode, yeah.
Yes. I wanted to talk a little bit about Maria's reasons for making the choice she does in the thing with Valenti, because there clearly seems to be a moment that everything is hanging in the balance and she could have actually confessed a whole lot of things to Valenti. And I did get a sense, although it wasn't explicit, that at some point there Maria actually realized how much Valenti was trying to manipulate her, and that...
Yes, because that turn is almost... undersold is the wrong word, but it happens very suddenly, certainly.
Yes.
She hovers right on that edge, if I will say something.
Yeah, that either she was about to actually say Isabel comes from outer space, Isabel comes from a crashed ship. Either that, or she was actually trying to tease Valenti with it and making him visibly want to hear her say that before she
Yes.
changes where she's going.
Yeah, it's an interesting turn that. I think I don't know, certainly it took me by surprise, even just rewatching it the second or third time today.
Yeah, I don't think I was as surprised as it, just because it is, I think, possibly one of the most iconic moments in the early episodes of Roswell to me. That turnaround and that line, she comes from a very nice family.
Yes, and we wouldn't want to do anything to any of those. No.
Yes.
As the group starts to adhere, it's yeah, I hadn't thought about it as an iconic moment, but you're right. It's one of the standouts from the early episodes.
Yes. So, what did you think about the dreamwalking sequence, aside from the rather bad makeup on Max and Isabel, at least? The Michael turning into an alien was actually very genuinely scary.
Yes, it
I thought
was. The dream walking is invasive.
it
I
is.
I mean, even without being cued to expect it to be, we get Max's line about Mum couldn't sleep for a week. I'd
Right.
forgotten how thoroughly disconcerting it felt watching Isabel sitting there having this conversation.
Yes.
Although I
Yeah.
did wonder, actually, Isabel makes it very clear she can't interfere in the dream, so are we meant to take away from it that Maria would be calling out to the sheriff for help, even if Isabel weren't flustering her with questions?
Hmm.
I mean, it would certainly be understandable. There's
Yeah.
a tentacled Michael attacking her.
Yes. Yeah, I think possibly it may be just that she doesn't have like magical powers in the dream, but she could still affect Maria's emotional state, which could still affect the course of the dream that way.
That would make sense.
Right. Yeah, the line about how Maria's mom reacted to the dream walking always made me wonder about what this was like for Isabel to discover that she has this power.
Yes, and how she discovered it.
Yes.
I mean, did she
And then
curl
if
up with a
she.
picture of her parents and just suddenly stumble into a dream, or did she consciously
Yeah.
make the effort to find out? Or I think we talked in a previous episode about Max and Isabel maybe finding a safe way to practice powers.
Yeah.
So maybe it grew out of that.
Yeah, I love the idea of her doing this and not realizing what she's done, and possibly even not realizing that it's a dream, that she's just in this place where all of the rules are different.
Yes. There's something quite appealing about that.
Yeah.
If only because it's so uncomfortable and so intrusive.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and she seems kind of almost to oversell the notion that she can be in control in this kind of thing, and that it's something that she has a right to do to protect herself.
Yes. Yeah, no, it obviously comes from a very protective impulse, but it's that idea of, I suppose, tapping into other people's heads, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding out,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a very
Yes.
well shot scene, though, I thought. It worked really
Oh,
well.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, the bit at the end with her calling out to the sheriff who wasn't even looking up at her, and
Yes, and the
definitely.
drabness of the colours, except for Isabel,
Yes.
and no, it all worked
Yes.
beautifully as a sequence, I thought.
Yes. Yes, and the little capper with her immediately falling off the bed as she wakes up.
Yes, all tangled up in the blankets.
Yes. Okay, was there anything else you wanted to
Um,
cover specifically about the A plot?
Not that I can think of.
We had a little bit of a call out to Michael's obsession with the key, basically just to remind us that that's
That's still there, it's still in play.
still, yeah, still on the back burner. And I really liked some of the Topolsky stuff. We commented in the pilot about how Max is capable of emoting with all of this vulnerability and sincerity to the sheriff. And I think really Topolsky shows that she can do it too.
Topolsky can. She's a terrible geometry teacher, but she gives not terrible advice, actually, as this
Yes.
episode goes along.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how much I buy that she was a wallflower in college.
You don't?
I don't know.
I can
She seems sincere about it. I have a hard time picturing her being that reticent.
I could really picture her like that somehow.
I can sort of see it, I
Yeah.
think, as we're
Yes.
discussing it now. She's
Yeah.
so very good at prying,
Yes.
getting where you don't want her to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I've wondered a lot, and we may discuss this a bit more about exactly what Topolsky's background is and how exactly she wound up here.
Whatever it is, she's got the perfect cover story for finding out more
Yes.
about these people, though. I will run schematic
Yes.
computerized tests on you.
Yeah. 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 So probably I think we should hold off on that for
A little bit longer.
yes, yes, there'll be occasions to discuss it more when we don't have to worry so much about spoiling, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always kind of liked that bit, especially where she talks with Isabel and kind of almost punctures her facade, saying that, this aloof, removed wannabe supermodel is not who you are, and I can see through that far at least.
Yes, and I quite appreciate Isabel's line about, well, I never trusted computers.
Right.
Particularly because it's preceded by Topolsky's assertion that she's got a much more personalized way of getting to know people than surveying the heavens. You think, well,
Right.
by comparison,
Yes.
you're running it through a machine. Which does do a lot of
Yes.
face to face with them, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it didn't really feel like I understood where the scene with Liz was going so much, talking about why Liz wanted to be a scientist so much.
No, except to make me question vaguely how she's taken the aliens so in stride.
Right. Yes.
Although I don't know. I mean, we do see her using biology to make sense of that particular mystery at the start, so maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Well, she does
Yeah.
talk towards the end about intersections on her path towards becoming a scientist and how that's part of what keeps life interesting, but
Yeah.
I agree, it felt a bit odd.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll get the better kind of response to kind of the rationalist versus the aliens thing once we can bring Alex into the whole secret and see how he bounces off Liz with that reaction.
Yes, poor Alex is just badly underutilized at the moment, through nobody's
Yes.
fault. They just don't have the
Yes, though
time
I
to.
did love how all of his responses were kind of turning Topolsky's questions back on herself.
Yes, I really enjoyed that. It felt at once a lot like Alex and was just good fun.
Yes. Yes, and some of the minor characters, including Kyle, their answers were also good laughs.
Yes.
And then we have the whole thing with Max in the UFO Center, which also seems to be set up stuff where there's not that much crunch to it, but it gets Max there in the UFO Center, introduces us to Milton, and we're going to get a lot of mileage out of those through most of the season, actually. So,
Yes, it was good to finally get to see the UFO Center and a setting that wasn't the school or the crashdown, I think. See Max dealing with an environment that was trying to tread that line between science and the aliens and
yeah.
his two worlds, really.
Yeah, and also kind of to see him not hiding so much because, calling out that question about 1959 is certainly not the cautious thing to do in that situation.
No, but on the other hand, it's only what everyone around him's doing, so there's a funny way in which, as long as he's there, Max can be more himself, even if it is
Right.
pandering to the tourism.
Yes. Yeah.
It allows him to be visible without being too visible, I suppose.
Yeah. And there was also, I think, some ironic dread about Max being in that setting, and especially the looking at the alien autopsies exhibit and kind of,
Oh, that was uncomfortable, yeah.
yes, yeah. It's a bit of a callback to the
to that earlier
flaming
scene in
alien
the
bodies
pilot,
in the
yeah.
pilot. Yes.
And at the same time, one thing I did think was interesting, I suppose this ties
Yes.
into what we were talking about really, we get, for a novelty, it's been Michael all the way through the series that's been so far scrabbling the most for answers. And I
Right.
really enjoyed watching Max and Isabel grappling with that a bit more. Max at the UFO Center talking to Isabel about it.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
admission that for all their normal home life, they did want to know a bit about if they had other parents somewhere, what their world was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what their
Asking her if
future
she was
could be.
ready for
Yeah.
those answers.
No, and I very much like that admission that it frightened her.
Right.
Because however Topolsky feels about hiding behind the tree hindering their lives, they really have laid down solid roots in Roswell, as we've seen.
Yes. Yeah.
And presumably the stakes just get higher as we go through the series.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, very good episode, especially for the Maria and Valenti stuff. I kind of think that this is the first hint of kind of almost the politically applicable metaphor of kind of trying to push someone into becoming an informant.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the threat of exposure. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, which was there in the pilot at least, but was played a lot more casually with kind of tell me what I want to know or I'll go to Valenti on you, and we kind of see that more darkly here.
Yeah, we got a glib line last week about they might not have their passports, these Czechoslovakians, but
Right.
this is the first time I think we really start to feel the menace.
Right.
Which leads me to ask too, what did you make of the title, Monsters?
Well, I think most clearly it's kind of a call out to Maria's dream and kind of the notion of are the aliens monsters. It could also be something aimed more at the alien hunters if they're actually the truly monstrous ones.
Yes, I like that. We do a lot with perception in this episode, whether it's Isabel's supermodel ambitions or Maria's ideas about what aliens are really like.
Right.
And it's effective, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so should we wrap up the discussion there and give this episode some ratings?
Sounds good.
Okay. Why don't you go first this time?
Well, we've been talking a lot about heightened threat and building menace up throughout this episode, and I think it all works really well. So I'm going to give it one ominous photo.
One ominous photo. Nice. And got some great character work here, and love the stuff with Maria. So I give it 5 ice cream rockets.
That sounds good. Like that. If you agree or disagree with us, you can get in touch via Twitter at AliensCast or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aliencasts or visit our blog at alienscast.com.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review over on iTunes. Help other Roswellians find us. Our theme music is Epic Trailer Intro by Honey Lemon.
This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Find out more by searching for Creative Commons.
I'm Chris Kelworth.
And I'm Claire, and this is Illegal Aliens, a Roswell podcast. Join us next Monday, May 15th, 2017, as we discuss the 4th episode of Season 1, Leaving Normal.
In which perhaps Isabel may come to regret having bonded with Maria.